Buenos días a todos.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Tenemos aquí
We
a
have
Drew
Goddard, the
Prensa
director of
ROYALE,
Bad
que
Times
clausura la
at
sección
El
oficial de esta
Royale,
edición
who closes
del festival.
this edition
Lo
of San
clausura,
Sebastian Film
si lo habéis
Festival.
visto, por todo lo
It's the
alto.
closing night, but it's a great party. It's a great film
No
that
sé
we've
si
just seen. So
tenéis alguna
I'm not too
pregunta.
sure whether you have any questions. Yes, please.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Hi, good morning. Hi, good morning.
Yo quería preguntar
I would like to ask
su
you,
anterior película,
well, your previous film, Cabin in the Woods, was a festivity of tributes to the horror genre and full of references. I would like to know, what references have you had for this new film? What tributes are you paying there, really, vis-a-vis writing the script? And I would like to know, vis-a-vis Chris Hemsworth, he's very associated to the superheroes world, and he's accustomed to being a very good character, but he's if you'll allow me, a right bastard in this film. So when you offered him the role, how did he take it? Or what did he say? I want to change my register completely as an actor, and I'll take on this role.
Translation? It's not working, the translation?
It's not, we're sorry. Translation's not working.
Okay, I think that it should be in this one.
1, 2, 1, 2, can you hear me? 3, 1, 2, can you hear me? Can he repeat the question? Repite.
Yeah?
Hang on, we'll wait for... Yes, he's going to repeat the question, Mr. Goddard, if that's okay with you.
Hola.
Problemas técnicos. Hi again. Hi again. Let's try again. I was saying that your previous film, The Cabin in the Woods, was a festivity. Was a festivity.
No, is it working?
It's not working.
Volumen.
It's on 3.
Volume. Now, there we go. Good on you. There we go.
Okay, thank you.
Vale, de acuerdo. Gracias a todos. Okay. Your previous film, The Cabin in the Woods, was a festivity, shall we say. You paid tributes to references to the horror genre. I would like to know, in this new film, what references have you had for this new film, and what type of tributes have you paid when you wrote the script? And I would also like to know, as regards to Chris Hemsworth, and he's closely associated to being a good character, playing good characters thanks to superheroes from Marvel. So when you offered him this role, who's a right bastard, really, what did you think about that? Or was it he that said, I want to change my register as an actor? How did that all go?
Perfect. When I set out to make this film, I wanted to write a crime thriller. I love the genre, and I wanted to very much explore that territory. I always try to push myself into doing something new, and I had never played around in the crime genre. So it was very much about setting out and exploring the crime fiction that I had loved so much. Authors such as Dashiell Hammett, Agatha Christie, Jim Thompson, James Ellroy, all were very much on my mind as I was working on this film. Then as it came time to direct, I started looking at directors who inspired me and continue to inspire me every day. Certainly the works of John Huston, Sergio Leone, Alfred Hitchcock's very present there as well. And it all sort of went into this pot and became an influences for Bad Times at the El Royale. And it started with a very simple concept. One stormy night in 1969, a bunch of mysterious characters all check into a hotel, and we see them start trying to kill each other very quickly. And it was very much the stuff that drama is made of. And so when it came time to populating this, I just looked at my favorite actors on the planet. It was very much a pipe dream. You start with Jeff Bridges, Cynthia Erivo, Dakota Johnson, John Hamm, and yes, the great Chris Hemsworth. This is now the second film I've done with Chris Hemsworth. I hope to do many more with him. I love working with him very much. He is, one of the things I don't think people know about him is how nuanced and complicated and extraordinarily precise he is as a performer. He doesn't get a chance to do that because he's so busy saving the world all the time. And in this particular case, I wanted to show a darker side of him. I wanted to show audiences a side of Chris that they'd never seen before. And Chris, to his credit, was very game. I think he saw a chance to do something different and explore new territory. And so I'm very excited for the world to see what Chris Hemsworth does in this movie. Thank you.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hi. Congratulations, I had so much fun, so thanks for that.
Thank you.
I have a curiosity. There is a moment in the movie in which we can see in the news that there has been some kind of murder, series of murders,
Right.
and then one of the characters just switches the TV off fast. And I don't know if it has anything to do with any of the characters, or it's just a distraction for us to be suspicious of something.
Yeah, certainly nothing in the film is arbitrary. Every decision is there for a reason, and as it reflects on these 7 characters. Now, we are not overt about it. It is not something that we want to, it is intentionally ambiguous, I suppose, but nothing is arbitrary. I leave it to the audience to decide how it interacts with the film, but if you pay close attention, you can see which characters it refers to and what happened in that time.
A mí personalmente me
Ma-
interesa saber cómo fue el proceso
I
de
would like to
escribir
know
el guión.
personally
Por un lado,
how
por
you
este
wrote the
sitio
script,
estupendo
this
que tengo
great
entendido que es
place
bastante
that I
mítico en
think
Estados
is quite a
Unidos.
myth, El Royale, that is to say, and on the other hand,
En varias de las películas que
in
has
several of the
escrito,
films
algunas
that
de ellas
you've
también
written, some of
dirigido,
them that you've also directed,
me da la sensación de que tienes
I'm
muy
under
en
the
cuenta
feeling that you
elementos
bear in
a
mind
priori externos al
elements
guión.
that are external, for
Montaje,
example,
¿no? Y en
the
esta ya se ve a
editing,
nivel
for
de
example,
estructura, a
you
nivel
see
del
the
uso de los match
structure, the
cuts,
ways
todas
that
estas
you use the
cosas.
match
Entonces,
cuts
¿cómo es
and this,
para
that, and
ti
the
el
other.
proceso de
What's it like
escribir
for you to sit down and to write a script like that? Did you know that you were going to direct the script of the film yourself, or how did that all go about?
When I start working, I start with a very simple adage, and it's that just simply write the film that you want to watch. I don't worry about anything other than that. I just put myself in the audience and write what I want to see. So in this case, it started with the concept. It started with characters. I picked sort of characters that were archetypes in the noir genre. You have very, very straightforward archetypes: the priest, the singer, the cop, the junkie. These were all in the crime thriller. And then I set out to humanize them, show sides of them that we're not, that we don't always get a chance to explore and see. And so when I write, I start with character. There's a couple big surprises in the movie that I don't want to spoil too much for the audience, but if you've seen it, characters do surprising things. That's because when I was writing scenes, I would get to a place where I wasn't sure what to do, and then I would ask myself, well, what would Darlene do in this situation? What would Darlene do if confronted with this man? And let that dictate where the story goes. When I follow character as opposed to following plot, it leads me to much more interesting places, and that was how I approached this movie.
Hello, and congratulations for the wonderful film.
Oh, thank you.
There's one line in the film that I would like to use it as an excuse to ask a question. The
Great.
memory of a man can be sometimes better and more interesting than the man itself. Does that thing apply also to directors?
I think it does apply to directors. I mean, as I was working on this movie, clearly there is elements of cinema in the narrative. The idea of voyeurism is a very cinematic idea. As an audience, we are watching people and watching them when they do not know they're being watched. And the characters within this movie do not know they're being watched, and it puts you in the position of the audience, but as a character in the film. And so this idea that we are more than who we are as people. This idea that as directors or filmmakers or artists, our work supersedes ourselves. It was very much on my mind as we were making this film. It's much more important to worry about what you have to say and hope that it touches a universal truth among people.
Buenas, hola aquí.
Hi, I'd like to know, all of the characters in the film are quite marked by violence. They've got a very violent background, all of them, except possibly Darlene's character. As you said, nothing's arbitrary in the film. As you said, what do you mean, or what do you want to explain with all of this? Thank you very much.
Very much for me, the movie is about violence and how violence echoes through time and how violence echoes through people and affects their lives from the outset. If you look at each character, they are victims and perpetrators of violence, and those consequences shape the narrative of the movie. Just because, and violence can come in many forms. Darlene we may not show physical violence done to Darlene, but we show something much deeper, which is emotional violence. The way violence is inflicted on Darlene is in some ways much more vicious than a punch or a kick. It is done to her artistic soul, and so when I was constructing the movie, it was very important to me to explore how violence is created and to show violence in a way that was not fetishistic. Everything violent that happens in the movie has consequences. Everything violent that happens in the movie echoes, and the movie itself, I think, takes a very firm position on what that violence means. Thank you.
Hola, quería preguntarte
Yeah, I'd like to know the historical background of the film. It's 1969, I think it's set. Martin Luther King was murdered and so on, and those things. Kennedy had also been murdered, Vietnam War, and so on. Therefore, the United States was awakening from the dream, and I am asking whether the fact of writing this script is because you're talking about those bad times that took place at that period vis-a-vis the current situation in the United States, but talking about the bad times in 1969, yeah.
I think part of why I like dealing with a different time period is it allows you to explore issues of our time without being overt about it. And the thing that made the 60s interesting to me is you're dealing with intense political upheaval, intense political turmoil, and at the same time, you had this great awakening of art. You had arguably some of the best pop music in history was being written. I don't think that's an accident. I don't think those two things are separate. I think times of great turmoil can lead to times of great art, and I think in many ways that's how artists endure great turmoil, is to process this through the art. So in working on the film, it was not an accident that Darlene came to the forefront. Cynthia Erivo's character is the artist of the film and is struggling with how to endure the violence of the time around her. And by setting it in the 60s, it allowed me to explore that. Certainly the evils that they were dealing with in the 60s are not unique to the 60s. When you start to study history, you realize that these evils have been going on a long time, and the evils that we are dealing with now in our world are nothing new.
Hi, me again. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi. I was thinking about the songs that Darlene sings. They are such an important part of the movie. So how do you choose those songs, if you chose them at all? Maybe it was someone else.
Yeah, when I wrote the script, I wrote every song choice into the script because the songs, in many ways, the songs are the eighth character of the film. The movie is about music. It is about how music allows at least me to endure difficult times. So scenes were written to those specific songs. When we storyboarded, we blocked them. All of these songs were chosen for a reason. Darlene is a character who she's very armored. She does not show her emotions. The only time her emotions comes out are through song. And so we wanted to see that and show the emotional resonance of what she was going through. And so when we picked the songs, it was all about what she would go through as a person and allow the emotion to dictate the song choice.
Yo, en relación con el personaje, Cynthia, tenía una pregunta.
As regards to Cynthia, this is a question and this is a curiosity. Excuse me
¿Por
for
qué
asking the
contratar a
question.
Xavier Dolan para ese cameo? No sé, me ha llamado la atención.
There's a cameo scene there. Why did you choose that person who did that cameo scene? I forget.
Tal vez eres
Perhaps
seguidor de sus películas.
you follow his films. Oh,
Yes, so Xavier is an extraordinary director, an extraordinary actor, and I just wanted to work with him. I mean, one of the fun parts about being a director is you just get to pick your favorite people and then call them and be like, could you please come be in my movie? And they'll take your calls. And so I just wanted to work with Xavier. I think he's such an extraordinary talent, and it was very special for him to come do this film.
Okay.
Hola.
hi again.
Yo quería preguntar sobre
Hi again, I would like to know whether you work with storyboards, because, but what drew my attention as regards to the interior of the Hotel Royale, the symmetries, or the almost symmetries of the shots. There were many shots, the colors as well, in certain moments, or in many moments in the film. I don't know, it made me think that all of that was drawn on a storyboard beforehand or something similar. Is that correct?
Yes, storyboarding is a very key part of my process. I like to work out every shot of the movie in conjunction with my cinematographer, Seamus McGarvey, who is a luminous talent. We work very hard on our shots and our designs. We had to design the hotel itself around the camera shots. So much of what we did was dictated by the shots. And so we would plan those months and months and months in advance. There's one shot in particular where we're moving down the corridor with John Hamm. That shot took 8 months to figure out because we don't cut. And you see inside every room. And all of that was done almost as a ballet because Cynthia Erivo is singing live the entire time. And we had to figure out how to do that. And it took a lot of research and development. It was a very difficult shot to achieve. But luckily we had an extraordinary team that was game and figured it out. It was very satisfying when we got that shot finally.
Buenos días.
Hi. Hi, good morning. I'd like to ask you, as a director, as a producer, as a screenplay writer, the Me Too movement, has it changed something in cinema, in the world of cinema? And for example, has it changed anything vis-a-vis negotiating a nude scene?
I think change is very much, yes, I think to answer your question, change is here. And change does not necessarily happen fast, but it happens slow. It happens with moments. It happens with empathy and awareness. And it was something we were all very conscious of in this movie. We tried very hard to create an environment free of discrimination and harassment. And we took very seriously, I took as a filmmaker very seriously, the message of the movie, because in many ways what the movie is saying is as important to how we say it. And so at its core, this movie is a very angry movie, and it is very much dealing with the issues of our time on screen.
¿Alguna pregunta?
Any further questions? I've got another one, another question. I don't want to hear myself too much, but nevertheless, I'm taking full advantage. So you're a director who started your trajectory as a screenplay writer in TV series like Buffy, Vampire Cassie, Hunter, and also Lost, I think he said. Okay, one of the fantastic series. So therefore, did you already know you want to be a director, or is it something you found on the way?
It all comes from a place of love and love for cinema. I grew up in a small town in the mountains of New Mexico. I did not know I could do this as a job. As a child, I did not know. I just knew I loved movies, I loved writing, I loved photography. And I let that dictate. I was very naive. I drove out to Hollywood, slept on my uncle's couch, who was not in the business, and just took any job they would give me. And I've been very lucky that I get to do what I get to do. I love writing, I love directing, I love producing. I love all of it, and it keeps it fun to do different things every day. The great part about television is that every 8 days you're making another hour of material that allowed me to do a whole lot of different jobs. You get a lot of experience working on shows like Buffy and Lost because those shows were also ambitious and they straddled genres very, very well. And so I was very grateful to get to do all of those different things in such a short period of time.
Okay, thanks so much.
Hi, good morning, congratulations for the film. I loved it, the truth be said. I've got a question that deals with the characters. No one whose they say they are at the beginning, and only they tell the truth when they're taken to their limit. So therefore I'd like to know what you based yourself upon in order to achieve that result, and whether you've studied psychology, because all of them the characters are really well portrayed. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot, thank you. No, I don't know that I studied a lot of psychology, but I do study people. I think my job as a writer is to empathize and listen. And that's one of my favorite parts of the job, is to try on somebody else's clothes and see where they take me. Certainly with each of them, with each character, I would almost transform myself as I was writing each character and try to live in their skin and think about what they were struggling with and what were the things that they felt and feared as I was working on them, and it led me to some very dark and interesting places.
Hola, ¿qué tal?
Hi. Hi, I'd like to ask you about the hotel. I understand it's a true hotel, real hotel that exists, and there's a myth behind what it was in the past, and I would like to know, what do we know, what's rumored, what's the hearsay, what happened in that hotel, and who went through that hotel, by the way, in the past?
Well, you know, when I set out to make the movie, I wanted to make my own hotel. It wasn't based on any one hotel. Certainly there were several hotels that had a lot of urban legends about them. The Calneva, in particular, was a hotel that was in California and Nevada. And in the 60s, there was a lot of rumors that dark and interesting things were happening there. Some of the things that you saw in the film, such as the FBI tampering with the hotel, were rumored to have happened with these hotels in the 60s. Hoover was very notorious for bugging hotels and spying on his enemies and using that information to gain political power. And that was very much on my mind, this idea of surveillance and power and how power accumulates in this time. But there were also several other hotels that were sort of known for their voyeuristic peccadillos. I have to say, researching this hotel, I stumbled on a lot of dark hotels, and it made me think about hotels in a very different way. Once you study what can happen in hotels, you never fully feel safe anymore. You're always looking at the mirror, going, wonder what's back there.
Tenemos tiempo para una última pregunta.
Time for one last question.
Sí, bueno, vamos contigo.
Bueno, pues hola.
Well, hi again.
It's good to see you again.
Qué bien.
Yo quería...
I would like to,
Tengo una sensación,
I've got the
al
feeling
acabar de ver la película, y es
at the end of the
que
film
todos
is that all of the actors, the cast and crew, I imagine, had a great time. Could you confirm or unconfirm that? And also, this draws the next question, whether there were any sections of the film that was more difficult to film.
Yeah, to answer the first question, we had a wonderful time. I'm not an artist who believes that you need pain to make art. I actually believe that artists do their best work when they are nurtured and protected and safe. So I try to create an atmosphere on my sets that protect the artist. I want people to be happy to come to work. I find that people are more willing to explore the darker sides of themselves when they feel protected. That's just my personal belief in how I approach the job. So certainly when you get into the third act of this film, from an emotional point of view, that was the hardest part of the job, because you had actors tied up around a table for long periods of time, and each day, a different person would have to explore some very complicated emotions. And so while fire is burning all around us, we used real fire, because I don't like computer-generated fire. I don't like computer-generated effects. I feel like you lose something. But as a result, it made for a very hot and difficult set. And it was, we shot around that table for about 3 weeks. It took about 3 weeks to do all of that. And so every single day we'd be exploring somebody's pain. So Monday we would explore Dakota's pain. Tuesday we'd explore Cynthia's pain. Wednesday we would explore Jeff's pain. Thursday we'd explore Lewis's pain. Monday back to Dakota's pain. It would go around and around, and it was a very intense time. It was a very intense shoot, but I'm so grateful that the actors were willing to go to these places and explore this side, because I believe great humanity came out of those performances, and And it was only because they were willing to go there. It was only because they were willing to dive into the crucible with me and each other that we were able to achieve that.
Ok, pues yo le daría un fuerte aplauso por esto.
A big round of applause for this great end of the festival. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.